Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of the local time. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. During the previous night, the Russians made massive missile strike all over the entire territory of Ukraine. During the previous night, there were lots of explosions. The Russians were using significant number of different types of weapons, including Iran's Ha-101 missiles, Kalibr missiles, Iskander-K, Iskander-M missiles, and also some Ukrainian sources posted reports that the Russians launched few Kinzhal missiles as well. Massive attack on the Dnieper hydroelectric power station and other Ukrainian energy facilities. At night, energy facilities were attacked in Zaporozhye, Dnipropetrovsk, Donetsk, Kirovograd and Ivano-Frankovsk regions. The consequences are being clarified, said the Minister of Energy of Ukraine, German Galushenko. Furthermore, we got later, after the explosions and attack ended, we got the map of missile roads. As you can see, different types of weapon the Russians were using, and as you can see, once again, the main concentration of Russian fire took place in the western part of Ukraine, in the vicinity of the village in the town by the name of Stry. So in the vicinity of the area where we can find the biggest gas facility that, according to information we have, the European countries are using for storing their gas and collecting their gas for the future. Furthermore, according to reports we had, the Russians attacked Ukraine with Kinzhal, but when take a look at this map, we don't see even a single road of Kinzhal attack. That was a massive attack, and this is the third day in a row when the Russians are bombing the territory of Ukraine, and most likely the Russians are getting prepared before the beginning of a summer military campaign with the purpose to open another front line, probably somewhere in Chernihiv or Sumy area. The Ukrainians reported that as a result of air defense, they managed to bring down 35 of 53 missiles and 46 of 47 drones. For now, we can't, let's say, confirm this information or not, but as you can see, the Ukrainians also confirmed that that attack was very big and very massive. And once again, the Russians were targeting and mainly destroying the Ukrainian energy facilities. Now, let's move to the line of combat contact. We have a lot of very interesting updates, and first let's start with Avdiivka direction, where the Russians continue offensive operation. And during the previous night, we got significant number of reports and updates in the vicinity of Nitaila, more precisely between Nitailova, Yasnobrodovka and Nemanskaya. The Russian sources published the video of series of strikes, of FPV drone strikes on Ukrainian positions in Ukrainian forces, let's say in the vicinity of Yasnobrodovka, in the vicinity of Karlovka, between the towns, between the railways, between, let's say, the tree lines, and many other, let's say, places. As you can see, significant number of strikes. The Ukrainians suffer significant losses, and right after the video was published, the other sources published the reports about additional Russian progress. For example, pro-neutral mappers are saying that as a result of offensive operation, the Russians managed to improve their positions, and according to different mappers, this is approximately the territory that is already under complete Russian control. So if we summarize everything, we see that Yasnobrodovka is already encircled and got semi-encircled, at least from the north, from the northeast, from the east, from the south, and from the southeast. The Ukrainians still probably have some roads for evacuation, but most likely today or the day after, the Ukrainians will abandon their positions completely, and the Russians will establish complete control over this territory as well, and then the Russians will decide whether to move further to the west or to try to bypass Karlovka water reservoir from the south or from the north. Also, very important update we got from Novoalexandrovka, from this area. Also, according to different mappers, the Russians managed to improve their positions and basically to cut the main supply road that goes from Novoalexandrovka to Progress. So this area was cut by the Russians. This is very important. We see that the Russians are improving their foothold around Novoalexandrovka itself, so we can say that the Russians are in the active phase of storming the village and the settlement, and of course the Russians will continue moving further. Now let's move to Chasiv Yar direction. We have few important updates. We got the video from the Ukrainian sources confirming the Russian presence in the eastern Chasiv Yar. On this video we can see how the Ukrainians were FPV droning and bombing the Russian forces in the area, which confirms the Russians' presence there. Also, Also, we have another report that the Russians continue offensive operation, let's say, along the forest, along Stupki-Golubkovsky in German forest further to the west. And according to probably the second statement during the previous months, the Russians managed to cross Seversky Donetsk-Donbass Canal and to, let's say, establish a foothold on the Ukrainian side of this area. So this is once again another Russian progress important. And according to that report, the Russians are pushing to the block by the name of Novy, and that there are very heavy clashes already inside of the area. I'll remind you that somewhere around 2-3 weeks ago we got almost the same statement from another source, but later that source adjusted its map, showing that the Russians were forced to fall back under the Ukrainian pressure. Maybe the Russians, after regrouping, let's say, repeat their attack once again, and this time they managed to achieve some results and some success. Now we are moving further to the north. We have additional updates from the area of the vicinity of Kurylka. On this video we can see that the Russians managed to discover the Ukrainian, let's say, radar P-18, and as a result of a strike that radar was destroyed. This is the part of Ukraine air defense system. So as you can see, once again, the Russians most likely will hunt the air defense system of Ukraine during the next few days, also before the beginning of the greatest Russian offensive, possible Russian summer offensive. Now we're moving further to Berestovo, Stelmakhovka, Novoselovka area. The different mappers confirms that the Russians continue advancing further to Stelmakhovka from Berestovo. There are very heavy clashes, let's say, between the fields, both sides, the Russian attacks, and of course the Ukrainians are counter-attacking the Russians. So very heavy clashes. For now, the situation is like it doesn't develop in any favor. But on the other side, we see from Novoselovska, the Russian sources published the video of how they were attacking the Ukrainian positions. That was another storm using two types of weapon, two types of equipment: Russian tank with demining equipment and one personnel carrier. On this video we can see that the Russian tank in the head of the convoy was attacking the Ukrainian trenches and the fortifications, clearing the area before landing operation, and we see the personnel carrier moving behind the tank, also attacking the Ukrainian positions in the trenches. So currently we don't know for sure whether that attack finished successful or not. This video was published by the Russian sources. The only thing we know for sure that the Russians reached the trenches and started clearing them. So the Russian tank, the Russian armored vehicles were moving something like this along this tree line. The Russians landed in this area and then started clearing this territory. So for now we are not going to adjust the map because it's not enough of information whether the Russians were successful or not. But anyway, we're keeping in our mind that probably the Russians managed to improve their positions on this direction as well. So we see that the Russians are moving to the northern part of Stelmakhovka from two directions, from the north and from the east, northeast. So this is, let's say, the approximately the situation. Now we are moving further to Kharkiv direction. We have additional updates. The Russians continue storming the citadel in northern Vovchansk, for now without any changes on the ground. This is the strongest point of Ukrainian defense. The Russians have already spent probably 2 or 3, maybe even 3 weeks of clashes just trying to bypass this territory. And as soon as the Russians are able to do this, as soon as the Russians are able to take control over the stronghold, of course the northern Vovchansk will collapse automatically. So this is the most difficult part of this area, and the Russians have already spent significant number of days. The Ukrainians during the previous night conducted massive missile strike on Belgorod area. The Russians reported that they managed to bring down every single Ukrainian missile, and some sources, Russian sources, published the video of work of Russian air defense. So telling the truth, that night was very, very hot from both sides. And of course the most important updates are political, and they're coming from China. Today Chinese authorities made 2 important statements. The first one was made by the Ukrainian Chinese military authorities. The Chinese army is ready together with the Russian army to defend justice in the world. The Chinese People's Republic Liberation Army is ready to strengthen strategic ties with the Russian armed forces and work with them to defend international justice. This is a very important statement, very loud statement when the Western countries one by one, let's say, reporting and stating that they're allowing to use their Western weapon to attack the territory of Russian Federation. The support of China is the strongest support that Russia can expect in the world. Also, the Chinese authorities, more precisely Xi Jinping, calls for peace conference and justice over war in Gaza as Arab leaders visit Beijing. He also retired China's call for the establishment of an independent Palestinian state, as well as Beijing support for more broad-based, authoritative, and effective international peace conference. So also we have, let's say, official statement that China is not going to visit Switzerland where Zelensky is planning to hold the, let's say, international peace conference, aiming to force Russia to stop the special military operation and to, let's say, abandon their positions until the borders of Ukraine of 1991. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.